The rain had been falling over Black Hollow for 3 days straight. No thunder. No lightning. Just rain. It came down in thin, silver needles that stitched the sky to the earth, drowning the streets, flooding the gutters, and turning the old cemetery on Briar Hill into a swamp of leaning headstones and black water. That was when the graves began to hum. The sound beneath the soil. Clara Whitmore first heard it at 2:17 a.m. She knew the time because the digital clock on her nightstand blinked red in the dark, and she had been awake, listening to the rain trace crooked fingers across her bedroom window. At first she thought it was the pipes. The house was old, older than most in Black Hollow, built in 1891 by her great-great-grandfather. It groaned when the wind shifted. It whispered when the temperature dropped. But this was different. It was low, vibrational, almost melodic. A long, sustained note rising from somewhere deep beneath the house. Clara held her breath. The sound faded. Then another began. A second tone, slightly higher. They overlapped, harmonized, and Clara realized with a creeping, paralyzing dread. It wasn't coming from the house. It was coming from underground, to Briar Hill Cemetery. By morning, the entire town had heard it. People stood on porches in their bathrobes. Shopkeepers left doors half open. Children pressed their ears to soaked lawns. The hum rose and fell like a choir buried alive. By noon, someone had called the sheriff. Sheriff Dale Mercer, a broad-shouldered man who prided himself on logic, walked the perimeter of Briar Hill Cemetery with 2 deputies. The mud sucked at their boots. "You hear that?" one deputy whispered. Mercer didn't answer. He was staring at the graves. Every puddle in the cemetery rippled in perfect rhythm. The headstones vibrated. And from the center of the oldest section, where the graves dated back to 1790, the hum grew loudest. Mercer crouched beside a sinking stone marked, "Eleanor Vance, beloved mother. Died 1793. The soil around it trembled. The name carved into the stone shifted. Just slightly. As though something beneath it had pushed upward. 3. The first opening. The rain intensified at dusk. Black clouds smothered the sky as townspeople gathered at the cemetery gates despite the sheriff's warnings. They needed to see. They needed to understand. At exactly 6:42 p.m., the humming stopped. The silence was worse. A child began to cry. Then the ground exhaled. The grave of Eleanor Vance collapsed inward, soil spiraling down like water through a drain. The stone tipped, cracked, and fell. From the hole rose not a hand, not a body, but a sound. A single, pure note, so high and sharp it pierced the air like glass. Everyone clutched their ears. Blood trickled from noses. Car windows shattered along the road. And from every grave in the cemetery came the reply. For the choir. They rose slowly. Not the dead, but something wearing them. Figures climbed from the earth with the stiffness of marionettes. Their skin was pale clay, their eyes packed with soil, their mouths opened too wide, stretching, splitting at the corners. And they sang. Not words. Not language. Just layered, impossible harmonies that vibrated through bone and marrow. Clara stood frozen at the cemetery gates. She saw her mother among them. Dead 3 years. Buried on the eastern edge beneath a willow tree. Her mother's jaw unhinged and widened further, ribs expanding grotesquely as though her lungs were filling with something vast. The song deepened. The sky responded. The clouds spiraled downward, forming a black funnel that did not touch the ground, but hovered above the cemetery like an eye. Watching. Listening. Conducting. The truth in the soil. Old Mr. Holbrook, the town historian, screamed over the noise. It's not resurrection. No one could hear him. He staggered forward, waving a soaked leather journal. Clara ran to him. "What is it?" she shouted. He grabbed her shoulders. "They're not ours. They were never ours." He flipped the journal open to a brittle page filled with frantic handwriting. The first humming. The first rain. The first opening. They found something beneath the cemetery, Holbrook gasped. A cavern. Bones older than humanity. And something alive within them. The settlers hadn't built the cemetery on sacred ground. They built it on a mouth. 6. The awakening. The figures stopped singing. In perfect unison, every head turned upward toward the swirling sky. Then downward. Toward the earth. Their mouths widened impossibly, splitting their skulls in petaled fractures. And from within each corpse, a black filament emerged. Thin as spider silk. It stretched upward into the funnel cloud, connecting body to sky in a trembling web. Clara felt something tug inside her own chest. a vibration behind her ribs. She stumbled back. All around her, townspeople gasped and fell to their knees. The hum was inside them now, resonating, matching pitch, calling them to join. 7. Descent. The ground cracked open beneath the cemetery, not collapsing, opening, like lips parting. A vast chasm yawned where the graves once stood, and from its depths came the true voice. It was not music, it was hunger, ancient, patient, planetary. The settlers had sealed it once, using the dead as corks in the earth. Generations of bodies had muffled the sound, but the rain, endless, relentless rain, had softened the soil, loosened the seal. Now the mouth beneath Black Hollow inhaled. The black filaments snapped taut. One by one, the corpses were pulled upward into the cloud, dissolving into dark vapor as they ascended. The townspeople screamed as invisible threads tore from their chests. Some were lifted inches off the ground before the connection snapped. Others were not so lucky. Sheriff Mercer rose silently into the air, eyes wide, mouth open in a soundless note that joined the sky. Then he was gone. 8. The last note. Clara clung to Mr. Holbrook as the earth convulsed. "Can it be stopped?" she cried. He looked at her with ancient, defeated eyes. "It doesn't want the dead," he whispered. "It wants the living." The dead were insulation. The funnel cloud began to descend. Closer. Lower. The humming reached a crescendo that split trees in half and shattered every window in town. Clara felt the filament latch onto her heart. Cold. Sharp. Pulling. She thought of her mother. Of the old house built in 1891. Of the generations who had unknowingly fed the thing beneath them. And then, she screamed. Not in fear, but in defiance. A raw, discordant cry that broke the harmony. For one impossible second, the pitch faltered. The funnel wavered. The filament trembled. And the mouth in the earth paused. Silence fell. Heavy. Suspended. Waiting. 9. Epilogue. When the rain stops. The rain ended at dawn. The cemetery was gone. In its place lay a smooth, glassy crater, black and reflective like cooled obsidian. No bodies remained. No graves. Half the town was missing. The survivors never spoke of what happened. But sometimes, on nights when the air is heavy and still, a low hum returns beneath the soil of Black Hollow. Soft, patient, practicing. Aunt Clara Whitmore no longer lives in the old house on Briar Hill Road. She lives at the edge of town now, listening. Because once you hear the harmony, it never truly stops. And somewhere beneath the earth, something is still tuning.